Howdy, y'all. Howdy, y'all. Howdy, y'all. Let's get cranking. Let's get AMXkids in. Let's get AMXkids in. What do you think of that? You want to get AMXkids in? Let's go for it. Why don't we? Not AMXkids in, but AMXkids in. Like we're kids in. Like just what we're doing. Like we're running. No, we're kids in. AMXkids in. Does that even make sense? I don't even know what you're saying anymore. Who are you? Who are you? Oh man, happy another live episode of AMXkids. And yeah, I'm gonna mention 9/11 in the episode, but obviously let us all remember 9/11. I'm sure all of us who were of age can remember where we were at that time. And yeah, let us never forget. Lauren, hello, Lauren. I hope you're doing well. Right now, my babysitter is upstairs. Not my babysitter, Rocky's babysitter. And I'm going to get cranking with AMXkids. Sorry, I was thinking. I was thinking as I was typing. I'm not saying a lot, sorry. I was thinking what I'm going to say. Oh, well, thank you, Lauren. I appreciate that. All right, so let's get cranking with AMXkids 12. Remember, this is for kids, but it's up to you and me to get this into kids' ears. Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of AMXkids. This is AMXkids 12, AMXkids 12, Way of the Warrior Kid. We're going to finish off the book this week. Now, this is a when I say this is a stinking fun read, I mean it's a fun read. I was reading it last night, either right before or right after. No, I was reading it this morning, I think right before or right after I worked out, and it's like, oh, I just want to go work out. I just want to train. I just want to read books. So that's the effect this book will have on you. I promise. So you can get it, either get it on Amazon, get it on my website, charliespaniard.com/reading list. Wherever you get it, just get it. It's about our friend Mark and his uncle. Uncle comes and spends the summer with him and turns him into a, way of the warrior kid. Turns him into a warrior kid by teaching him the way, right? Helping him develop his own warrior code. Your warrior code is simply the things you believe in the way you live your life. Now, I encourage you, like I said, obviously read this book. Go back and listen, starting at AMXkids 9. And that starts us out with the book, Way of the Warrior Kid. And right now we're going to finish it off. We're going to start a new book next week. I'll announce that book soon. I got it down to like a list of 3 or 4 of them. But right now, let's talk about Mark, Way of the Warrior Kid. And the first thing we're going to talk about this week is fear. Fear. This AMXkids is covering chapters 21 through 25. So let's talk about fear. What is fear? If I were in a classroom right now, if you're in a classroom, if you're with your team, whomever is running or organizing that group or team, hit pause and have the kids define what fear is. Okay, if you would ask me what is fear, fear to me, and this is not looking at the dictionary definition, fear to me, Charlie Spaniard talking right now, is that uncomfortable feeling in your belly when you're afraid, that uncomfortable feeling you get when something might be dangerous. Okay, that's what we're talking about with fear. There's all kinds of different things in life and in the world that can give you that fear, that can induce that fear in you, make you feel fear. But I went to the dictionary. I do this often, and I encourage you all to do this as well. You're fortunate in that you're growing up with the internet. When I grew up, they had these things called dictionaries, and they were made of paper, hard backing normally, sometimes a soft backing. They were bound, right? You had to open it up, you had to sift through it, boom. Right now, you can just go to Google and type in fear definition. I do that often, even with words that I know. Like, I know what fear is. I just told you what I think fear is. But I want sometimes a technical definition helps add to your understanding of the word. I do that with all kinds of words. And I recommend that you practice that habit as well. It solidifies your understanding of things. So fear, according to the Google, is this: an unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something is dangerous, likely to cause pain, or a threat. So think about it. Again, si estuviéramos en una clase, if we were in a class, I would ask, what are you afraid of? What have you been afraid of since you were a kid? Or when you were a kid, like a young kid. I have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. My daughter, who's 5, is starting to become afraid of, every once in a while, she'll bring up like a monster. Or maybe she's afraid to go upstairs when the lights are off. All right, so we have monsters, we have the dark. Now let's talk about you a little bit. You're in middle school, give or take a couple years. Even if your parents are listening right now, how about a talk? How about a speech? How about a presentation? Do you know that giving a speech, public speaking, is one of the most common fears that there is? To get up in front of people and talk, to share with people what you learn. So that creates fear in people. How about this? How about bullies? Have bullies ever made you feel fearful? I know 1,000,000% they did in my life. When I was in middle school, it was full of being bullied. It was full of being afraid of, oh my gosh, I have to go out to the hallway after lunch, and oh my gosh, what if this kid tries to beat me up, and oh my gosh, I'm going to go to the Little League game, and oh my gosh, what if that kid's there and he tries to beat me up? That's fearful, right? That's fear. How about a test? Pop quiz. Ooh, remember that? You know that? Heck, it's September 11th. You might be feeling that right now. You might be feeling that fear right now. You have a test coming up. Oh man, I have a test coming up. That induces fear in you. So remember, Mark, our friend Mark, is dealing with bullies. He's learning Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is a hand-to-hand combat sport, right? That's a hand-to-hand combat that he has to deal with. He's learning to swim. A lot of people are afraid of water. Ooh, how about this one? How about being afraid of the little sea creatures that are in the water when we're in the ocean? I know my wife is very afraid of that. School can be intimidating. You're going to a new school for the first time. You're starting a new year, or maybe it's just school in general. Maybe it's day in and day out going to school, and kids maybe pick on you or make fun of you, and the tests are hard for you, and maybe you're not a very good reader, and all of these things can induce fear in you. But Uncle Jake tells Mark this. He says, quote, you have to learn to control fear. You have to learn to control fear. Now let's talk that out a little bit. Okay, let's play a little scenario. You're about to get up front to do a presentation and you're afraid, right? You feel fear in your belly, in your soul. You're just scared and afraid. And the Spaniard, rather than sitting here talking to you by way of this podcast, I'm actually sitting beside you. And I say, okay, John, here we go. All right, don't be afraid. Control your fear. You're going to look at me. You're going to say, what do you mean control my fear? I'm afraid. I can't control my fear. Right? No, just control it. Just control it. And you're going to say, I'm trying, but I can't do it. I'm afraid. I don't want to get up on stage. So that can leave you thinking like, well, how in the world do I control my fear? That point, right? It's got to start before that point. I'm going to talk to you about me, my personal experiences, my fear. First and foremost, know that I am afraid of nearly everything. Nearly everything I'm afraid. Even sometimes staying home alone. I'm 37 years old, and sometimes I don't want to stay home alone, right? I get scared of that. How about this? I was a professional fighter. I fought the scariest men on the planet. And that's not an exaggeration. Look me up, look my record up, and then look at the people I fought. They are the scariest people on earth. I'm afraid of everything. So how did I overcome it? This is where it's at. This book, Mark, Uncle Jake, Jocko, the author, his podcast, the things he teaches in his leadership classes and courses and programs, it all deals with hard work, preparation, discipline, etc. It's the actual putting in of the work the putting in of the preparation, that overcomes that fear. So how do I overcome it? How do I walk into a ring, into a cage with cameras in my face and thousands of people watching me and locked in a cage about ready to fist fight someone, where maybe 1 million people are watching on TV? You beat it through hard work and preparation. That's it. That's the simple answer to it. You beat it with hard work and preparation. Listen here, your ability, okay, I'm talking about an actual opponent. So let's envision that. I can look across the cage at my opponent and say to him, I trained harder than you. I believe that I put more of myself into preparing for this fight than you put yourself into preparing for this fight. Is it true? I don't know, because he might believe the exact same thing. But the actuality of whether it's true or not, honestly, truthfully, doesn't matter. But I need to truly, completely, 100% with all of my soul and all of my being, believe that I can look that opponent in the eye and say, I worked harder than you, or I prepared more than you for this. So if it's a speech that you're worried about, if it's a test, if it's a competition, you need to be able to say to yourself, I prepared for this event as much as I possibly could. I put everything of my soul into preparation for this event, for this thing that I'm afraid of, that I possibly could. That is all you can do. That is the most you can do. I've never seen anyone, and granted, I've been around the best in the world champions, in various areas. I've never seen anyone who's not afraid. Never. I've never come across anyone who says, I don't feel nervous, I don't feel anxious, I'm not afraid. I've never seen that. But what you do come across is people who are afraid, but they learn. Remember, this AMXkids, the Spaniard Show, World's Toughest Lifelong Learner, this is all about learning. But what you do find is people who learn, as Uncle Jake told us, to control that fear. Uncle Jake tells us that it's because of the unknown that there will always remain a little bit of fear. Because listen to this. If you get ready to go up, I'm using a speech because I know a lot of you, I know a lot of people are afraid of giving speeches, presentations. You don't know how that speech is going to go. I just gave a talk on Saturday to a room full of very professional, very integritous, very influential military people, right? Military men and women and their families. I didn't know if they would laugh at my jokes. I didn't know if they would care about my story. I didn't know any of that. I did know I am prepared. I did know I worked hard for this. I did know that, right? But the unknown was there. I just didn't know. So there will always, always be that little twinge of fear that you'll never be able to get rid of because you simply don't know the future. And if you do know the future, you need to start telling people because you have a special gift. So accept that fear. Embrace it, right? Don't try to push it away. Embrace it. Know that it's there and then outwork it. Look, when I stepped into the octagon to fight, if you think I wasn't afraid, you're crazy. I was so afraid. But I knew because of the unknown, right? Because of I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe he could knock me out cold. Maybe he would break my arm. God forbid, maybe I could die in this ring. You just don't know that stuff. But you can never know it. All you can do is prepare for it, embrace it. Don't think you're weird or a wimp or a coward because you feel fear. Understand that everyone feels it. Talk about it, voice it, get it out there and outwork it. Next thing I'm going to talk about is standing alone. Who likes to be alone? Well, sometimes it's kind of nice to sit quietly and be alone. But who likes to feel like an outcast? Who likes to feel unaccepted? Not many people. You know, most of us like to feel like we're part of something, part of our school, part of our classroom, part of our team, part of our group, part of our family, our community. It feels good to be included. It feels good to be connected to other people. Uncle Jake tells us this about standing alone. The warrior remains strong. The warrior must know how to stand alone. So what he's talking about there, the warrior must remain strong. The warrior must know how to stand alone. If you really take to this book, if you really take to the message, the idea of the warrior kid, if you stick to the idea of what the Spaniard, what I teach every day by way of these books, a lot of times you're going to be making decisions that aren't the popular decisions. Because the other kids might want to go to the parties, the other kids might want to do the things they're not supposed to do. But if you're doing your best to live by this code, a lot of times that's going to set you apart from the crowd. That's going to make you stand alone. I can't tell you how many times, how many nights I went home, as an all-state wrestler, as a starting football player. How many times I went home and cried on my mom's shoulder and cried on my dad's shoulder because of the choices I made. I stood alone. And it's not easy. It was not easy then. It's not easy now. But if you truly believe in this, the way, a lot of times it's referred to as the way, doing things to the best of your ability as often as possible, staying the course, setting and striving to achieve your goals, staying focused and disciplined and determined and hardworking and integritous. That's not easy. So being a leader, listen, being a leader will sometimes put you in front of the crowd. When I say leader, a lot of times we think of a quarterback, NFL quarterback, the president of the United States, the captain of your team, whatever. So, of course, being a leader a lot of times is going to put you in front of the crowd because you're leading the crowd. You're influencing them. But listen, sometimes being a leader is going to separate you from the crowd because being a leader, doing the right thing, is not always easy. And a lot of times it sets you apart from the crowd, but that is the inherent part of being a leader. There's a word that I talk about often called accountability. So accountability is taking ownership of you, right? Taking ownership of you, developing your own warrior code, being able to stand up and say, I believe in these things and I'm going to live these things, whether it makes me really cool and popular or whether it makes me alone over there in the corner crying on my mom and dad's shoulders, talking to my guidance counselors, my principals, my teachers, because I know who I am, right? That's accountability. There's a great quote from the movie Rocky. I talk about Rocky all the time. I hope you kids are old enough to know who Rocky is, and if you don't, do some Googling and get up to speed on Rocky. But there's a great quote in the movie when Rocky and his wife, Rocky had to go away and train, and at one point they're kind of making up because they were arguing about him being away, and she says, I'm with you no matter what. And he says, no matter what, and she says, no matter what. So what I'm saying to you is own who you are, know who you are, develop your warrior code, and live it no matter what. And a neat little thing I want to throw in here. So I'm wearing a watch right now. This is a neat little kind of add-on to this segment. So at one point, Uncle Jake says this about a watch. The watch will help you stay disciplined by making you remember to get better every second of every day. This was something neat. And this is like maybe a little action you can take from, if you're really buying into this book and the Warrior Code and what we're teaching here on AMXkids, think about that, consider that, and maybe for your birthday, for Christmas, you ask for a watch. So a watch can remind you to stay disciplined by making you remember to get better every second and of every day. And I'm going to send off Way of the Warrior Kid book. I'm going to send off AMXkids 12 with this thought. If you lead, they will follow. If you lead, they will follow. Mark, in talking about his classmates, so he went back to school and he was this new person. Uncle Jake taught him. So upon returning to school, he said to Uncle Jake, they are listening to me. It is almost like I am the leader of the group. They are listening to me. It is almost like I am the leader of the group. If you lead, they will follow. I learned this through my professional fighting career. I learn it every day. If you are that warrior, if you do those things that warrior kids do, others will follow. The right ones will follow, and by default, you will become a leader. And I'm going to send you off with a great quote by Mr. Rogers. Again, if you don't know Mr. Rogers, get to know Mr. Rogers. Do some Googling. If you were a kid, actually, you might know who Daniel Tiger is, either by way of you or by way of your little siblings. Daniel Tiger stems from Mr. Rogers, right? Daniel Tiger's neighborhood. That comes from Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. So there's a little connection for you. But one of the great quotes, one of my favorite quotes ever, is from Mr. Rogers. It says, one of the greatest gifts you can give anybody is the gift of your honest self. So understand this, as you're developing your warrior code, as you and your mom and your dad and your coach or your teacher or your principal get this book, Way of the Warrior Kid, and you read it, you're going to understand what the warrior code is. And then you've got to remember, once you develop your warrior code, remember that one of the greatest gifts you can give anybody is the gift of your honest self. Create your warrior code and live it to the max. I sincerely appreciate you listening to this. There are however many kids in this world, and only a select few are listening to this show. You're buying into this idea of books, lifelong learning, being able to change your life. I sincerely appreciate it. I'd love to interact with you. Connect with me on social media at Charlie Spaniard. I love engaging and learning. I love talking books. I would love to help you sift through these books. So please don't hesitate to reach out at Charlie Spaniard on social media. Parents, teachers, administrators, please visit charliespaniard.com. You can opt into my email list. You can check out my speaking programs. I am bought in, hook, line, and sinker to lifelong learning. And I believe in the power of books, and I will spread this message. My mission is to develop lifelong learners. My mission is to spread the power of reading and the power of learning and how it can benefit and add to each and every one of your lives. I sincerely appreciate listening, my friends. Be bold. I love it. I love it. I love it. I really do. Daniel Tiger's neighborhood. Sorry, I'm thinking and singing. Land of make-believe, won't you ride along with me, ride along. We've got lots of friends on every street in this land of make-believe. All right, Lauren, thanks for tuning in. Thank anyone else who tuned in for all or part of this. I'm going to upload this and post it on my podcast feed. And I encourage you all to hop on there, search out Spaniard on iTunes, social media, or iTunes, whatever podcast app you're using, and get yourself subscribed. This, every other episode, will be sent directly to your phone. Signing out, hasta mañana.